Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Learn English Easy. I'm James.
And I'm Emily. We're so happy to have you back with us for another episode, where we help you improve your English and make learning fun.
That's right. Today, we're diving into a really important topic: how to improve your English. Now, this is something we get asked about all the time, right, Emily?
Absolutely. Whether you're a beginner or more advanced, there's always something we can do to improve our language skills. And today, we've got tons of tips to share with you. Right, James?
Oh, for sure. We'll cover practical ways you can improve your listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Plus, we'll talk about how to stay motivated and consistent with your English learning journey. It's going to be a great episode.
And we'll make sure to share a mix of easy tips for beginners and more advanced ideas for those of you who are already at a higher level. So, let's get started with the first tip.
All right, let's kick things off with one of the most important skills: listening. Now, Emily, how can our listeners improve their listening skills in English?
Great question, James. There are a few ways to improve listening, but the most fun one is to listen to content in English that you really enjoy. It could be podcasts like ours, or even TV shows, movies, or music. The key is to pick things that you love, because when you enjoy the content, you'll be more motivated to listen to it regularly.
That's such a good point. And it's important to listen actively. What do you mean by that, Emily?
Active listening means really paying attention to the words, phrases, and intonations being used. So, when you're listening, don't just let the words wash over you. Try to focus on what's being said and think about how those words are used in context.
Exactly. And you can also improve your listening by watching shows or listening to podcasts with subtitles first. Once you get the hang of it, try to watch without subtitles to challenge yourself.
Yes. And I also recommend listening to content multiple times. The first time, you might not catch everything, but the more you listen, the more familiar the words and phrases will become. It's all about repetition.
Great advice, Emily. And I also want to add that listening to a variety of accents can be super helpful. Different English speakers, whether from the UK, the US, Australia, or other countries, have different ways of speaking. The more you listen, the better you'll get at understanding different accents.
That's so true, and don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. Just keep going and you'll see improvement.
Now, let's move on to speaking. This one's a big challenge for a lot of English learners. Emily, how do we improve our speaking skills?
Speaking is definitely a skill that requires practice. The first tip I always give is to practice speaking every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes. You don't need a partner to practice. You can talk to yourself in English.
That's a great tip, and I think one of the biggest barriers for learners is fear of making mistakes. But making mistakes is part of the learning process, right?
Exactly. We all make mistakes when learning something new, so don't be afraid of them. It's actually a sign that you're trying and that you're learning. And when you do make a mistake, try to learn from it so you don't make it again.
Another thing that can help is to practice with a language partner. If you can find someone to practice with, it can be really motivating. You can do language exchanges, where you help them with your native language, and they help you with English.
That's a great idea. And if you're shy about speaking to others, start by speaking in front of a mirror. You can also record yourself speaking and then listen back. It's a great way to hear where you might need to improve.
And I also recommend shadowing. This means listening to a speaker and repeating what they say, trying to copy their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. It's a great way to sound more natural when speaking. Now that we've talked about listening and speaking, let's move on to reading. This is such an important skill for expanding your vocabulary. Emily, how can our listeners improve their reading skills?
Good question. One of the best ways to improve your reading is to read something you actually enjoy. Don't pick books that are too hard or boring because you won't feel motivated to finish them. Choose something that's fun or interesting, like a novel, magazine, or even an online blog.
Right. And if you're a beginner, you might want to start with simpler texts, like children's books or beginner-level readers. As your skills improve, you can challenge yourself with more complex materials. But the key is to keep it fun and engaging.
Exactly. And when you read, don't focus too much on every single word. Try to get the general meaning of the text. If there's a word you don't know, don't stress about it. Just keep reading and try to understand the overall context.
That's a great point. Context is so important. You can often figure out the meaning of new words by looking at the sentences around them.
Also, don't forget about reading out loud. This can help with both your pronunciation and your fluency. When you read out loud, you get to practice speaking and get used to the flow of English.
That's a fantastic idea, Emily. And you can also use technology to help. There are apps and websites where you can read and listen to the text at the same time. This is a great way to combine reading and listening.
And don't forget to take notes while you read. If you come across new vocabulary or expressions, write them down and look up their meanings. Then try using them in your own sentences. It's a great way to make the words stick.
All right, now let's talk about writing. This can be a little tricky for some learners because it takes time to develop strong writing skills. Emily, where should someone start with improving their writing?
Writing can be challenging, but it's also really rewarding. The first step is to write regularly. It doesn't have to be long, just a few sentences every day can make a huge difference. You could start by writing a journal in English, or even posting on social media in English.
That's a great tip. I always say that the more you write, the more you'll improve. Even if you're just writing short texts, it helps you practice your grammar, vocabulary, and sentence structure.
Another tip is to focus on writing short essays or paragraphs. It's important to practice organizing your thoughts. Start with simple structures like a basic introduction, body, and conclusion, and then you can move on to more complex writing later.
Exactly. And don't forget to revise your writing. It's not just about writing something down. It's about making sure your sentences flow well and that there are no mistakes. You can ask a friend or a teacher to look over your writing and give you feedback.
That's really important. And when you're reviewing your writing, try to focus on a few key things each time. Maybe one day you'll focus on grammar, the next time on vocabulary, and another time on sentence structure. This way, you're improving in different areas.
And if you're unsure about grammar, there are plenty of online resources to help you. Websites, apps, and even YouTube channels are dedicated to teaching English grammar and writing tips.
That's so true. And another fun thing you can do is join writing communities online, like on Reddit or other forums. You can share your writing with others, get feedback, and also help others with their writing. It's a great way to practice and learn from others.
Now, Emily, let's talk about one of the hardest parts of learning any language: staying motivated. I think a lot of learners struggle to keep going, especially when things get tough. What do you think helps with motivation?
Staying motivated is definitely one of the biggest challenges. But I think the most important thing is to set small goals. Don't try to learn everything at once. Instead, focus on achievable goals, like learning 5 new words a day or reading 1 page of a book every day.
That's such a good point. Small, consistent goals are much easier to reach than big, overwhelming ones. And when you reach those small goals, it feels really rewarding, right?
Exactly. And another thing that really helps is to find a learning routine that fits your lifestyle. You don't need to study for hours every day. Even if you study for just 15 minutes a day, if you do it consistently, you'll improve.
It's all about consistency. And if you make learning English part of your daily life, like listening to English podcasts while you walk or reading a book before bed, you won't even have to think about it as study time.
That's right. And don't forget to celebrate your progress. no matter how small. Learning a language is a long journey, so it's important to recognize the improvements you've made along the way.
And if you hit a rough patch, that's totally okay. It happens to everyone. Just remember why you started and remind yourself of the progress you've made. And if you need help or support, there are always communities and resources out there to help you get back on track. Alright, let's dive into one of the most powerful ways to improve your English: immersion. Emily, what exactly does immersion mean, and why is it so effective?
Great question, James. Immersion means surrounding yourself with English in every part of your life. The idea is to get as much exposure to the language as possible, so it becomes a natural part of your daily routine.
So, instead of just studying English for an hour a day, you make it a part of everything you do. This could mean changing the language settings on your phone to English, watching movies or TV shows in English, or even reading the news in English.
Yes, and the best part is that you don't need to be in an English-speaking country to do this. You can immerse yourself at home or anywhere by using the internet and other resources. The more English you hear, see, and interact with, the faster you'll improve.
That's so true. I think a lot of learners feel like they need to move abroad to really improve. But immersion can happen anywhere. Even simple things like listening to English music while you're cooking or driving can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And when you hear the language used in different contexts, like in casual conversations, in the news, or in music, you'll start to understand the different ways English is used in real life. It's not just textbook English anymore.
And another fun way to immerse yourself is through video games or social media. Many games have dialogues and stories in English, and following English-speaking influencers or content creators can expose you to a wide variety of language styles.
That's such a cool tip. Plus, social media lets you interact with others in English, which is a great way to practice speaking and writing informally.
Exactly. So if you can, try to make English a part of your everyday life. The more you hear, see, and use it, the more natural it will become.
Now, let's talk about something that's really important in language learning: learning from your mistakes. It's a big part of the process, right, James?
It sure is. Mistakes are inevitable, but they're also one of the best ways to learn. Think of every mistake as an opportunity to get better. So don't be afraid to make them. Just try to learn from each one.
And remember, nobody speaks a language perfectly, even native speakers. We all make mistakes, whether it's a typo, mispronunciation, or using the wrong word. The key is to notice those mistakes and work on them.
And if you're unsure about a mistake, don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Whether it's from a teacher, a language partner, or even a language app, getting constructive feedback is a great way to improve.
Yes, feedback is like a mirror that helps you see where you need to improve. And don't get discouraged if you don't get it right away. The more you practice and make those mistakes, the more you'll improve.
One thing I'd recommend is to keep a notebook where you write down the mistakes you make. That way, you can look back and track your progress. It's really motivating to see how far you've come.
That's a great idea, James. It's like having a personal record of your learning journey. And don't forget, being kind to yourself is important. Learning a language takes time, and progress might be slow at times. But as long as you're consistent, you'll get there.
Now, let's talk about something that can really make a difference in how you learn English: finding your personal learning style. Emily, do you think it's important to know how you learn best?
James, everyone learns differently, so finding what works best for you can make your English learning journey a lot more enjoyable and effective. Some people learn best by listening, others by reading, and some by doing.
Right. If you love listening, maybe you're more of an auditory learner. In that case, listening to podcasts like ours, or watching English language TV shows and movies, will help you the most.
If you're more of a visual learner, you might prefer reading books or watching videos with subtitles. And if you're someone who learns by doing, you might find that speaking and practicing with others helps you improve faster.
That's exactly it. And it's important to experiment with different methods to see what works for you. You don't have to stick to just one thing. In fact, combining different styles can make learning more fun and effective.
Totally. For example, you could combine listening to podcasts with reading English books, or practice speaking with a language partner while also writing in a journal in English. There are endless combinations of learning methods that work together.
And don't forget that you can adapt your learning as you grow. As you improve, you might find that you need less visual input and more speaking practice, or vice versa.
Now, let's talk about how technology can help with your English learning. We live in a world where there are so many tools and resources available online. James, how can learners use technology to their advantage?
Great question, Emily. There are so many apps, websites, and tools out there that make learning English easier than ever. One of my favorites is language learning apps like Duolingo, Memrise, or Babbel. They offer a fun and interactive way to practice vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation.
I agree. These apps are great for beginners because they break down learning into small, digestible lessons. But once you're ready, there are also more advanced tools like Fluent or BBC Learning English that offer videos, articles, and quizzes to challenge you even more.
Yes, and don't forget about podcasts and YouTube. There are countless educational podcasts, including this one, that focus on teaching English in fun and engaging ways. You can listen while you're on the go, which is super convenient.
You're right. And YouTube is also a goldmine for English learners. There are tons of channels dedicated to teaching English, from grammar lessons to pronunciation tips, and even cultural aspects of English-speaking countries.
Another tech tool that I love is voice recognition software. Apps like Google Translate or Siri let you practice your pronunciation by speaking into your phone and getting instant feedback. It's a great way to check if your pronunciation is on the right track.
That's such a cool idea, James. And speaking of technology, I also want to mention online dictionaries. Many dictionaries now have audio features, so you can hear the correct pronunciation of words. This is super helpful for building confidence in speaking.
Definitely. Technology can make learning much more accessible and convenient. The key is to find the tools that fit your learning style and use them regularly. Don't be afraid to try different ones until you find what works best for you.
Now, James, we've covered a lot of tips today, but there's one thing that I think is really important for learners to remember: consistency and patience. Can you talk a little bit about why those two are so important?
Of course, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to become fluent in a week, and that's okay. The key is to make learning English a part of your everyday life, and stick with it. Even if you only study for 15 or 20 minutes a day, if you do it consistently, you'll see huge progress over time.
That's such an important point, James. Patience is key. It's easy to get frustrated when you don't see immediate results, but language learning is a gradual process. Every time you practice, you're building skills that will pay off in the long run.
Exactly. And remember that everyone's language learning journey is different. Don't compare yourself to others. Your progress might be slower or faster than someone else's, but what matters is that you keep going.
And it's okay to have days where you don't feel motivated. We all have those moments. But the most important thing is to not give up. Even if you miss a day or two, just get back into it the next day.
That's so true. And celebrating small wins along the way can really help keep you motivated. Maybe you learned 10 new words this week, or you understood a conversation in English without any subtitles. Those little moments are victories.
Yes, and don't forget to give yourself credit for sticking with it. You're investing in yourself, and that's something to be proud of. So keep going, and trust that with time, your skills will improve.
Well, Emily, I think we've covered a lot of ground today on how to improve your English. We've talked about listening, speaking, reading, writing, and all the ways you can make learning English a part of your everyday life.
We've shared tips on staying motivated, using technology, and embracing mistakes as part of the learning process. And we hope that all of these tips will help you feel more confident and inspired in your English learning journey.
Exactly. And remember, learning English is a lifelong journey. There's always something new to learn and explore, so don't be afraid to try new things and challenge yourself.
And if you ever feel stuck or unsure about something, don't hesitate to reach out for help. Whether it's asking for feedback from a teacher, finding a language partner, or joining an online community, there's always support available.
That's right. We're all in this together, and we're here to help each other along the way. So, keep practicing, stay patient, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We hope you found these tips helpful and that you feel inspired to continue improving your English. And as always, if you liked this episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to hear how these tips are working for you.
Yes, and if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. We love hearing from our listeners. Thanks for tuning in to Learn English Easy, and we'll see you next time.